Hello, I'm Tom Parker and welcome to Voices from the CEPS Ideas Lab. In this episode, I spoke with Paula Gurtler. Paula is an associate researcher in the Global Governance, Regulation, Innovation and Digital Economy Unit at CEPS, where she focuses on applied ethics and ethics of new technology. During our interview, we discussed the need to reform GDPR in line with our new data-driven world. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hi Paula, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi Tom, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Do we need to reform GDPR, given that we're in such a data-driven world at the moment, in order to remain competitive?
Wow, what a way to just kick us off away with the question, no chit-chat. No. It does seem like we do need to do something, right? Fundamental rights are still important. We still need to protect our right to data protection, personal data protection, our right to privacy. Those are still really crucial fundamental rights, arguably even more so now. So we have to have frameworks in place that really make sure that we have these rights in place. So what we've been seeing since the enactment and then enforcement of GDPR, or lack of enforcement of GDPR actually since 2018, we do see that there's more that needs to be done. So it does seem like we're reaching a point where we have to do something about GDPR because it really does not deliver necessarily on the ambitions that we have put into it.
Okay, so what are some of the concrete things that can be done?
So some of the concrete things that we have discussed also here at Ideas Lab in one of our sessions is that we should regulate more in a risk-based approach. So right now we don't make any distinction between the SME that is collecting a small amount of data, which doesn't pose a high risk, and our typical big tech companies that process a huge amount of data, and we don't make a difference between those two categories. So that means that we really overburden SMEs with compliance challenges and also a lot of the challenges that they cannot address at that level. So we do seem to have a need for a tiered approach so that not all GDPR applies to all data controllers, but that it is applicable to the risk level that we're facing.
It's more of a snipered approach rather than a scattergun, essentially. You're looking at it specific to the problems that are there. Is it easy to make those changes when they are that specific, rather than having a broad sweeping change?
It does seem to be easier to making such specific changes because it might mean that we can keep most of the GDPR, but we can add clauses that say these certain articles are not applicable to you if you're an SME, but if you are a very big tech company, you do have to comply with these additional challenges. So it seems that by making such smaller changes, we do have a better option of actually making reforms and making something happen. Does not mean it's going to be easy.
Okay, so then if it's not going to be easy, what would make it difficult?
There are many things that would make it difficult. One thing is that GDPR has become such a cornerstone of digital policy and digital regulation, not just in Europe, but we've also seen other countries adopt and take inspiration from GDPR, right? So if we start touching GDPR, we risk that a lot of things ripple throughout the entire digital governance that we've built in Europe and globally to a certain extent as well.
And we're in an unprecedented time because if we look at when GDPR was brought in to take over from the previous directive, the Data Act, or whether it's UK, Europe, around the world, they hadn't changed for a long while. They're changing, and I assume will have to change very quickly as our data world becomes ever more complex. Is this an absolute necessity that all of these changes, these addendums, these kind of things, they are allowed to be addressed and addressed quickly and correctly all the time? This isn't just this is going to be one size fits all and then we're going to leave it for a decade and look at it again.
Yeah, I mean, of course, one thing that we see is that we have more and more need for agility in our governance frameworks, right? We need to be able to adjust and adapt more. One thing in defense of GDPR as well, when it was implemented or drafted, it started in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, 2016, then it was published in the official journal of the EU. So what we saw in the GDPR, they anticipated a lot of the big data processing, algorithmic fairness, like algorithmic processing. These aspects were in there already, and now we see them actually, being tested in reality, being tested in real life. And on top of that, GDPR no longer stands alone in terms of data regulation, right? We have the Data Act, we have the Digital Service Act, we have the Digital Markets Act, all of these kind of overlapping. We also have the Data Governance Act, and the European health data space as other regulation that came in trying to deal with the challenges that we are now facing in a data-driven world, if you want to use those words.
Is GDPR leading, though, in the way that it works? When you mention some of those other directives that have been brought in.
What do you mean by leading?
Leading in how well it sort of governs, how well it looks after, how well people listen to it, how well it is flexible in being applied, changed.
Well, not really.
Okay.
And that was not necessarily the ambition of the GDPR, or that is not how I understand the ambition of the GDPR. It was supposed to be the foundation, and it's really at the base level. It is what we've built other things on top of, because it is protecting a fundamental right, and that is, the legal basis of anything that can be done. So it is not supposed to be the most flexible and the best. It's supposed to be protecting what we needed to protect, and it doesn't seem to be doing that quite so well.
What would be something else that you would hope for it to happen with GDPR? If in a last sort of 30-second summary, what would be your main hope?
Wow, in 30 seconds, that's going to be tricky because
I'll give you a minute.
Okay, excellent. I take a minute. That's fair. One thing that was mentioned as well, that we have a lot of responsibility on data controller, which could be a school, rather than the data processor, which could be Microsoft, which they are using to use some data, right? So the data controller has a lot of responsibilities that they can't live up to because they cannot bargain with the data processor. So in this example would be Microsoft.
Yeah.
So we have to make a distinction there and put more responsibilities on the data processor, who are usually the big guy, who we actually wanted to go after in these cases.
And how do we put more pressure on that?
By making this distinction more clear and then attaching the right requirements to this distinction.
Brilliant. Well, Paula, thank you very much for your time today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.